Dr. Henry, I was wondering if you could tell us how many publicly funded treatment beds are in British Columbia.
I don't have that data, but I can get it to you.
The answer is 3,663. Sorry. Do you know how many people are prescribed safe supply in British Columbia?
The last we checked, the Prescribed Alternatives program had about 4,000 individuals.
So do you think that it's appropriate that there is easier access to drugs than to treatment?
I don't think those are in competition with each other. There are things that work together, as we've heard about. We need a suite of things, and people accessing pharmaceutical alternatives, we know that from the data, and I refer again to the report that I put out. We talked to a lot of people about this, and the most of the prescribed alternatives are being used in combination with OAT. So that is people being able to get into treatment.
What's the average wait time for someone to be able to get into detox in British Columbia?
Well, that would vary, and maybe Dr. Bach would be able to give you more details around that. But it varies, and one of the
Dr. Bach, if you can answer that, that would be great.
Certainly, it's going to vary tremendously depending on needs. Part of the Road to Recovery model has been streamlining that access. So for people who are deemed high priority, it's 24 to 48 hours for those who and certainly can be longer for those who there's a prioritization process. But for anyone high risk, youth, people high risk of overdose, generally within 48 hours in Vancouver Coastal Health at least.
According to the RCMP in British Columbia, nearly 2/3 of the detachment served communities do not have drug rehabilitation or treatment programs available. Do you think that's acceptable? Dr. Henry?
Of course not. We want access to treatment programs across the province, and we've been working to scale up that access as programs that Dr. Bach mentioned for people to be able to access them anywhere in the province and have remote support, for example.
Do you think that decriminalization has been a success in British Columbia so far?
I think parts of it certainly have. With any change in policy that's like this, there are always unintended issues that come up, and we need to be pragmatic and address those.
So you think that having a record number of overdose deaths in the first year of a pilot project and having a premier beg the federal government to eliminate public drug use because it's been such a failure and people having to climb over needles to get to children's playgrounds is a success?
I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, but I think we also have to recognize that long-standing personal, social, structural stigma that keeps people silent about their drug use and creates these barriers is not going to go away in a few months or even a year. So this is one of a suite of measures that we need to do to take away some of those barriers that allow people to reach out and connect.
Thank you. Were any studies done on the impacts of children seeing open drug use before the legalization project went into play in British Columbia?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. We don't have a legalization project.
Were any studies of public drug use on children done prior to going into this dangerous pilot project experiment?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, but one of the things that we do know
kids are being exposed to people that are overdosed on the street. They're having to climb past needles on playgrounds. Parents are having to sweep the Abbotsford soccer pitch on a daily basis because they are exposed to drugs. I'm asking, was anything done by the government of British Columbia to look at the impact of that on the development of our children before embarking on this project? Yes or no?
let's think about this, because there is perceptions and stories that we are hearing, and we have not seen any data that there has been increased public drug use before and after decriminalization.
Do you have young children?
I do not.
Because parents are contacting me on a regular basis, telling me about how they have to sweep the playgrounds for needles and drug paraphernalia like crack pipes before they let their children play on community playgrounds. Do you think that's acceptable, yes or no?
Of course it's not acceptable. And we all have concerns about public perceptions and public use. But this has not changed because of decriminalization of people who use drugs.
Thank you very much, Chair. And back to you, Dr. Henry. Dr. Perry Kendall, he was BC's public health officer before you, 99 to 2018. Is that true?
He was the provincial health officer. That's correct.
And you seem to have some trouble with this, but the Vancouver Sun reported that in 2020, after retiring as the public health officer, he co-founded Fair Price Pharma. Is that true, or is that not true?
He was involved with it. I don't know his exact nature. He was involved with it. He is no longer involved with it.
Right. I'm sorry. What did you just say?
As far as I am aware, he is no longer involved.
He was one of the co-founders of this company that imported 15 kilograms of heroin into Canada.
You must remember that any importation of drugs into Canada is done
Dr. Henry,
under
please,
Health Canada.
This is not your stage to grandstand. This is to answer some very pointed questions. So the questions would be is, you know, he was the co-founder of a company that imported 15 kilograms of heroin into this country. And the answer, of course, is yes. Do you know a Dr. Mark Tyndall?
I do know Mark Tyndall.
And is it true that he's the former executive medical director of the British Columbia Centre for Disease Control?
That's correct.
And former deputy provincial health officer under Dr. Kendall. Is that true?
That's correct.
And he started a company called My Safe Society. Is that true?
I don't remember the name of it. It could be.
Okay, well, let's say it this way then. He started a company was to supply so-called safe supply harder morphone from vending machines. Is that true?
From biometric machines, I believe so, yes.
Fair enough. And that company then received $1.3 million from Health Canada's SUAP funding.
I'll take your word for it.
Well, thank you for that.
You're asking me for things that are not the details that I'm aware of or that I know of.
They're happening in your province, though, and you are the chief public health officer. That company also received $3.5 million in funding. Thank you for that. And that being said, are there other companies that you know of in Canada that have the dealer's license to legally possess, produce, sell, and distribute drugs such as opium, heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine?
You would have to ask Health Canada that.
You are not aware of any of those companies?
This is not an area of my expertise. I
didn't ask you if you were an expert. I asked you if you were aware of any.
I imagine there are. I don't know. Those are not areas that I focus on.
So what you would tell Canadians is that you have no idea that these companies exist, even though many of them are located in your province.
I would say that all of the companies, and as part of my role as provincial health officer, I don't meet with industry, whether it's industry related to drugs or industry related to vaccines or any other thing. So those are not areas where I have knowledge, detailed knowledge of companies.
Thank you. Dr. Henry, you recommended a non-medical model for safe supply. Do you have any examples of that you would have recommended to Canadians?
Well, we've been working on this, and I mentioned this when it's public knowledge when I came out with my report in February, that I think we need to look at all options around providing people with alternatives to what's toxic on the streets right now. And I have a report that we've been working on that will be coming out in the next few months on that.
Do you recommend compassion clubs like the one run by the Drug Users Liberation Front?
I don't recommend any specific model. I think we need to continue
You're
the
okay with
conversation on what models.
you're okay with the Drug User Liberation Front, though? That would be a model that you would perhaps support?
I'm not supporting any specific models. I think we need to look at all of the options that are available that have the important regulations around them and support them.
Dr. Henry, to me it's very concerning that many individuals who were former officials of the British Columbia government, and indeed people have occupied your position, are now involved with distributing, selling, and dealing drugs such as meth, cocaine, heroin, etc., and profiting from it. Is that okay with you?
I don't. I think what you have to do is separate between legal use, and that is under the purview of Health Canada.
Supporting these individuals, they did your job, and you're actually saying, "Hey, we should legalize more drugs in Canada." That's your pitch to Canadians. And oddly enough, these individuals are actually profiting from it. To me, that convinces me there's a significant conflict of interest here, Dr. Henry.
What I have always said and what I continue to say is that prohibition is one of the leading causes of the issue that we're in right now, and that legalizing and regulating is one way to manage the illegal and toxic drug crises that we're dealing with.
Dr.